Hi, I'm Dr. Paul. This is Live on Purpose TV. Time for a nap. Today we're talking about sleep, why it's so important, and a few tips that will help you to improve your sleep. So why is sleep important? That's pretty obvious, I think, to most of us. I mean, if I don't get enough sleep, it starts to wear on me. And really, the research supports this as well. Sleep helps to rejuvenate our bodies and minds. It's almost like a reboot psychologically. It helps to purge unwanted things from our mind and our body. Sleep is really important. So I'm not here to make a case about that as much as to talk about some of the ways that we can enhance or improve our sleep. I got to listen to a presentation from Dr. John Preston out of UC Davis. He shared with us some of the research that's been coming out about sleep. The different stages of sleep are important too. So if you think about the lighter stages of sleep, and they do certain things for us, and then there are deeper stages of sleep and those do other things for us. He pointed out there are three culprits to disrupting particularly our deeper, more restorative stages of sleep. And those three culprits are, in this order, alcohol, caffeine, and blue light. Third one surprised me a little bit. Let's talk about each one of those. Alcohol is something that is commonly used to calm down, to relax, right? It's actually a depressant. And that's why it tends to have a suppressant effect on our mood. Well, sometimes it elevates it first, but we won't get into that. The alcohol tends to disrupt, especially stage 4 sleep. If we miss out on our stage 4 sleep, we might not even know it. We might not notice it in the morning because we slept. We seem to have slept all night. But if we don't get that stage 4 sleep, especially as that builds up consistently over time, it can cause increased anxiety. It can lead to depression. There are a lot of things that start to happen kind of as a cumulative effect. So alcohol tends to disrupt that stage of sleep. So even though you might be going to sleep, you may not be getting the stages of sleep that you need. The recommendation, and I'm passing this along from the seminar that Dr. Preston did, the recommendation is to really limit your intake of alcohol. And there are other good reasons to do that, but that's not the purpose of this particular video. So let's go on to number 2, caffeine. Now, caffeine is a stimulant. So unlike alcohol, which is a depressant, caffeine is a stimulant, and it has a different effect on our central nervous system. Stimulants tend to disrupt sleep for the obvious reason that they tend to get you wired up. And a lot of people use caffeine for the purpose of staying awake. So notice that that's going to have an effect. Here's what I didn't know about caffeine until recently. It has a half-life of 5 to 6 hours. Now, a half-life in the world of chemistry just basically means how long does it take for half of that substance to be metabolized or flushed out of your body or to lose its effectiveness. Half. That means half of it is still there and active. So if you ingest 100 milligrams of caffeine at noon, you've still got 50 floating around in your system at 5 or 6 o'clock p.m. So we can see why if somebody has a big cup of coffee after dinner, or if they drink a Mountain Dew just before they go to bed, that's going to cause some obvious problems. Dr. Preston's recommendation was limit your caffeine intake to less than 200 milligrams before noon. And then none after. It was kind of funny because in this particular seminar, he's up there with a big old double mug of coffee right there on the lectern. And he said, I know, I get it. That was in the morning session. When he came back afternoon, bottle of water in the same place. He's practicing what he preaches. Less than 200 milligrams before noon. So take a look at your favorite beverages. See if you can determine what the caffeine content is in those beverages and limit it to less than 200 milligrams before noon. That's going to improve your sleep patterns. Now let's move on to the third one, blue light. I didn't really understand this before either, but it's interesting because The retina in our eye is actually connected to or tied into physiologically the thalamus, which is a gland that secretes certain chemicals into our bloodstream and helps to manage certain systems in our body. The retinal thalamic response is something that happens when certain wavelengths of light hit our retina and trigger certain activity within our brain and in our body. When blue light hits our retina, it tends to have an activating or an arousing effect. This is why when you look at a sky, for example, during the day, it's typically blue. This depends on where you live and how much pollution there is. It's typically blue in color. This naturally activates our body to be active and awake. In the evening, the wavelength changes. You look at a sunset, for example, it's very high in orange and red kind of wavelengths. That's on the opposite end of the spectrum from the blue. And it triggers a different response in our body through that retinal thalamic response that I was talking about. So our world is designed to help us have a regular, normal sleep pattern by the color of light, basically, that's entering our eyes at different times of the day. And we are diurnal creatures, which means that we're designed to be awake and active during the day and to be sleeping or recovering at night. We're not nocturnal, although some may claim to be. So what do we do about blue light? Oh, and notice that we have created artificial sources of light now. So we don't get up with the sun and go down with the sunset. We've got lights in our homes. Now, you look at a screen, for example, a computer screen, a tablet, a smartphone. Most of the wavelengths coming out of that thing are in the blue end of the spectrum. So our constant use of screens is actually interfering with our sleep patterns. So the recommendation here is to limit your screen time within an hour of sleep time. What if you just didn't look at screens within an hour of sleep? This is going to take some lifestyle changes for a lot of folks, because some people even have the TV on in the bedroom as they're falling asleep, or they leave it on while they're sleeping. I had one of my clients say, I can't sleep without the TV on. The science suggests that you can sleep better without the TV on, but it's going to take some training and some behavioral change. The screens are actually messing with our sleep patterns a little bit. So it's an interesting thing to be aware of and see if you can limit that. So avoid alcohol or limit the use of alcohol. Number 2, less than 200 milligrams of caffeine before noon. Number 3, limit your screen time, especially within an hour of going to bed. And it does help also to dim the lights in your home as you're preparing for bedtime or the evening. Dim those lights a little bit. Now, a quick word about sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene just has to do with what kinds of practices you have to improve your sleep health, if you want to think of it that way. 3 items to consider. Cool. Normally, we get better sleep patterns if we're sleeping in an environment that's a few degrees cooler than what we're normally comfortable with during the day. You want to keep it somewhat cool. Dark. And this ties back into the retinal thalamic response, because your eyes, your retina is picking up wavelengths of light whether they're open or not, whether your eyes are open or not. So light can come through your eyelid and still trigger certain things in your chemical system of your body. Having it as dark as possible is going to help. Now notice that a lot of the chargers and things that we have this little light on them, and some of them can be pretty darn bright, and a lot of them are blue, interestingly enough. So let's cover those up or move them to a place where they're not shining on our face or in our eyes during the nighttime. Keep it dark. Have some good blinds in your room. And then the third thing is comfortable. You want to have a nice comfortable pillow. You want to have a comfortable mattress. You want to have comfortable sheets. This is just common sense, but a lot of people struggle through feeling uncomfortable and don't take a lot of time to adjust that. We spend about half of our life in bed. So let's take some care to see that we're practicing good sleep hygiene. Cool, dark, and comfortable. So with those tips, hopefully we can get this sleep thing working a little bit better, And there's other tips and tricks that you're going to find in some of the other videos on this channel, because managing our anxiety and our anger and how we feel about things and managing our time, all of those things are going to help too. But hopefully for this video, we've covered at least some of the basics on sleep and sleep hygiene. Have a wonderful night. Hopefully you'll be sleeping well after this episode. Please subscribe and share this episode with anyone else that you think would benefit from this content.